Rep Corpus, are you also a co-host now? You see
I
those
am.
admit whatever options? Okay,
Yes.
great. And I have extended the invite to Brian as well, so he should be jumping on. I know he had something else um, just before this one, I think. So
He was actually able to join our other subgroup meeting as you, so he was at that from 11 to 12:30. So
he loves
Great.
meetings.
yeah, he seems to be a busy man with meetings. Busy man.
Yeah,
So Ajit, is Brian going to be able to walk us through the presentation? Are you going to walk us through? Tell
I
me
can
what you,
do it. He can also do. He'll also be there because we work together. I sent a copy of it just a
yeah,
little while ago with the agenda. So
saw that.
um,
Thank you.
yep. Um, Representative, you let me know when you want to get started, and we can essentially get going whenever.
Okay. I think here we go. Someone's coming.
Sarah Volka is here. Great.
I think we should start because we have a lot to get through today. This is a deep dive, if you don't
Yeah, I
mind.
agree. Yeah, no problem. And hopefully Brian will be jumping on too because he has obviously the backstory on this. I can speak to it more from the data itself standpoint and what it's doing. Um, but he has the backstory of how it's worked and what has been the feedback and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't mind, I'll just ping him one more time. Yeah. So, um, all right. So just from a formal standpoint, I guess we should call the meeting to order. Um, Welcome to the second meeting of the Special Education Outcomes and Analysis Subcommittee of the Bergen Commission. Thank you, everyone, for making time to be here. I had sent the agenda and the deck out about an hour ago, so you have the copy of essentially what we'll be uh, sharing. So hang on a second. I think Brian may have gone to the wrong meeting. Let me just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I can't multitask too well here. Let's see. Okay, I just sent it to him and I expect that he will be jumping on momentarily. Okay, thank you for your patience. Um, all right, so today's the deep dive into the effectiveness standards piece of our legislation. It is the subsection C number 6 in our charge that we talked about before, and I'll review that momentarily as well so that we ground ourselves in what the legislative charge is. And then we launch into a presentation, and we're a small group, so I think we can keep it informal. We want to share with you sort of some of the metrics that are there currently. Okay, here's Brian. Um, some of the metrics that are there currently in place, but we also want to share some possibilities of things that we already report about students with disabilities that maybe spark some ideas, or maybe you have other ideas. So we can kind of um, open it up for discussion after we're done with our presentation. So I am going to share screen just to make it easier to facilitate. So please let me know. Just give me a thumbs up if you could see it. Um, all right. Okay. So Brian, welcome. We're just getting started, so glad you could make it too.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Brian,
Glad
I
to be here.
trust you know everybody on here. Is there anyone?
Trying to think. Looks like I know most folks. Yes.
Okay. And everybody knows Brian, Division Director in Special Ed. Okay. So let's get started. So this is our committee charge for this particular subsection that we developed recommendations for standards for measuring the effectiveness of the delivery of special education services, a system of publicly acknowledging those school districts that are consistently meeting or exceeding such standards and those not meeting or below such standards. So that's kind of the charge. And Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you for the next few slides, and we can tag team the rest of the way.
Thanks, G. I'm not seeing the slides for some reason. I'm seeing folks. I wonder if it's my own view here. I have a gallery view on, so are other folks seeing the slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Seeing them.
Brian, I'm on
Interesting.
slide 3. So you have the deck, so you can.
The different forms.
Sorry for the technical difficulties here.
Let me stop sharing and reshare, Brian. Hang on.
Okay.
Let's see if that does it.
Agencies as an important part of students with this. Well, the responsibility service delivery of individualized education.
There it goes. Yes, that's
That did it. Okay.
sorry, my laptop must just need on this cold day extra extra kick to get going.
All right.
But once again, it's an honor and privilege to present to you today. We put together slides, as mentioned, from Ajit, and then looking forward to the conversation that ensues. Our special education vision, I'm sure you're aware of the charge that the SEA has, but really we engage in collective efforts to ensure students have a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, preparing them for life after public schools, whether that be continuing education, employment, and independent living. We also provide guidance, technical assistance, and support. So the SEA is the accountability arm, but also support for our educators, programs, families. And our ultimate goal is improved outcomes for students. This is a really nice graphic that we like to display that documents our general supervision system. There are 8 components here. Each are very important in the work that our agency does. And they're also closely integrated, meaning that this work doesn't happen in isolation. And each of these areas inform each other, again, with the goal of improved outcomes. The Office of Special Education Programs expects all state education agency in their general supervision system to address these areas. That doesn't mean that there can't be more, but that these are the required areas. And so today we're going to focus on and describe our state performance plan and how we measure outcomes for students and how that informs technical assistance, as well as some of our monitoring activities as they relate to LEAs and programs. I know this is probably not new to any of you, but as you are aware, across the nation and in Connecticut, the prevalence rates for special education have been on the rise. This graphic describes and shows that in a visual way from 2008. Between 2008 and 2012, there was a particular focus on scientific research-based interventions and guidance and documents statewide on general education interventions and how those interventions assist with child find activities, but also proactively ensure that students are receiving interventions proactively in concert with the special education referral process. Interestingly, as well, as our special education counts increase, our general education counts continue to decrease. That accounts for some, not all, of the increases across the state, in our prevalence rates. But there are other factors that are contributing to our prevalence data increase.
The general so local education.
And this is essentially from the, and Representative Corpus, I know we talked about like providing some national context with as many of the measures as possible. So we're including some national reference points where available, because not everything we could actually locate. But this is not exactly the same as K-12 prevalence. This is sort of ages 3 through 21 as a percentage of total enrollment. It's close, it's a proxy. And you could see kind of where, darker areas are higher prevalence rates and lighter areas are slightly lower. I mean, very few, I don't know of anybody that's less than 13% here. Maybe Texas is probably closest, but almost everybody is 13 and above, and the Northeast and some of these other states are closer to 17%. And again, this is 22-23 data. That's the most recent year available from the U.S. Department of Education. And again, all of this is in the deck that you have. The other piece that we included was just a breakdown by primary disability. And we pulled out, typically in Connecticut, at the federal level, we don't report the SLD dyslexia, the learning disability dyslexia subcategory at the federal level, but we pulled it out here at the state level just to show you the counts of students that we're talking about. And the two areas that had the greatest increases were autism, which is like this lower level, going from like 8,600, in 2016-17 all the way to 14,000. And then the SLD dyslexia number is this small sliver up here, which goes from about 1,100 to, last year around 4,700. So those are the two areas that are growing faster than special education as a whole. But just to give you a sense of like the counts that are involved in this. And Brian, I'll defer to you.
Thanks, Ajit. Yeah, I think this is an important slide also because, the students' needs are so varied, even within a disability category like autism. And so understanding the needs of the students, where the increases are happening, are really important as we are supporting our local school districts in the provision of services as well. So we put together a slide here to show you the required indicators. So these are federally required indicators for each state to oversee and administer and to collect data on. They're separated between compliance and results-based indicators. And so we won't go through each one today necessarily, but we wanted to make sure you have an overview. And we've highlighted with stars, just asterisks, those indicators that contribute to our local school districts' annual performance report determination. And so in addition to the compliance-related indicators that inform a local school district's determination, we also include that graphic below there, additional indicators, which is timely correction of noncompliance, submission of data inaccuracy, as well as chronic absenteeism. And based on feedback from our collaborators and partners, we know that school engagement and attendance impact really each of these areas in different ways. And so we do incorporate those data in a determination as well. The next few slides, we're going to go into a little bit more depth on some of the results-based indicators and talk through the not only the calculation, but also the results in Connecticut with recent data.
Can I ask you, Brian, before we
Yes,
move
please.
on, if I might? So this is the, if you could repeat kindly, this is what I think someone should mute.
Brian, I think
if
there's,
they-
you probably have somebody near you or there's some background noise there. I don't know.
Oh, I apologize. I thought the audio was coming through my headphones. Let me try to address that.
Yeah.
No problem. And if we obviously need you talking, so if
Yeah,
it happens,
exactly.
then it's okay. But
Could you
I
let
just
me
want-
know if this is better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I apologize. Thank you, Ajit.
No problem. So what are we looking at here? Are we looking at, if you could kindly reiterate, is this
Sure.
what the federal government requires Connecticut to report every year? In
All
the
states.
aggregate, on a
States.
state level?
All states.
All states.
So actually, let me step back on that, Representative. Each one is an indicator based on data, right? So we get data about how students are doing. We're still getting background, Brian. I don't know, somehow. I don't know where that's happening, but each one of these represents an indicator that's calculated based on the data. So for example, when we're talking about disproportionate overall representation by race ethnicity, we're actually looking at the students identified for special education by race ethnicity and then checking to see if there is disproportionate identification by race. Are Black
Okay.
students, Hispanic students, and that's done, and these indicators are all reported. Well, I don't know if all of them, but they're reported at the state level, but also at the local level. So
Okay.
these result indicators like graduation, dropout, test scores, et cetera, those are all reported at the district level as well. But I think what we're highlighting here is that the ones on the left we deem as compliance indicators, that the feds deem as compliance indicators, and it's pretty much the compliance indicators that factor into us determining whether an LEA is doing its job when it comes to delivering special education. These result indicators do not factor in to that school district determination.
Okay. And this is for special education students only.
That's correct.
And is this once a year?
Yes. It's an
Yes.
annual exercise. Yes.
So once a year, we're reporting to the federal government how many of our special education kids are graduating, how many drop out, et cetera, et cetera. Of the 17 results indicators,
Just to be clear, also, those are the numbers of the indicators. That's not, it's not like you'll notice some numbers are missing in the middle, right? It's just, this is the indicator number, not a sequential number.
oh yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
But to me, at least, the ones that are really the heart of what this subgroup is supposed to do are number 3, statewide assessments, number 7, preschool outcomes, and number 14, post-school outcomes. Just to me, as an outsider to this field, that to me is the heart of what we're trying to get at here, because resolution sessions, these are important results indicators because they show a lot of things, but just from the kids' perspective of how far are they going in their education, it seems like those are the heart of the matter. Would you all agree with that?
Well, I would say, and Brian, you should jump in too. I would say graduation is an important one too. Obviously, we
Yep.
want students to finish high school. We don't want students to receive inordinately high exclusions from the classroom. That's important. I mean, in the
They're all
special education
important.
world, the least restrictive environment is an important thing. We want students to be educated with their general education peers at greater rates. So having that as an indicator sort of emphasizes that point. So it's not a direct student outcome measure as much as a delivery expectation of the system, of the programming, if you will.
Rep Corpus, if I might. So I agree with you in the sense that I think it's important to narrow this down, obviously, right? And I'm sure Brian's probably going to get to that as he goes through the presentation, but I was doing the same thing. I was looking at, okay, which 3 or 4 of these ones do we really mostly care about to satisfy this piece of, again, measuring effectiveness of the delivery of special education. and I would agree that those assessments, preschool, post-school outcomes are key. Again, you could argue a couple other ones. Graduation, I think that's a little, there's kids that don't graduate with a degree and go on to, transition services. So there's some challenges there with that data. But I would agree that those three, in my mind, because sort of ask the question, are sort of agree with you.
Can I just ask a quick question? It goes to the prior slide and just some data that I'm just curious how it impacts what we're talking about. Right? Actually, yes, this one. So the greatest increases were in autism and dyslexia. Do you feel also, is that congruent with more investment in identifying those students? Has there been more investment in identifying, students through reading apprehension and other things for dyslexia? And the same with autism. Has there been more of an effort, or is there more of a national trend around identifying more students on the spectrum because it is such a large spectrum? I'm just curious, if this is the largest increase in our population, I'd just like to try to better understand that.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Rep Radar, or your statement. There's a number of factors. One is that our districts, there has been a particular focus on an improvement in evaluations for students and early identification for students. So we look at these data based on a variety of factors. And we'll say, as Ajit mentioned, autism, we're also seeing increases, for example, for students that have experienced trauma prior to school, and larger numbers of students coming through the Birth to 3 system,
Right.
already identified preschool. We can share grade by grade where we're seeing the highest percentage increases, and it is in earlier grades as
Right.
well for our pre-K, grade K and 1, and just greater needs overall that our students are receiving. And we need to ensure, so another complicated aspect of identification is that a disability in and of itself doesn't mean a student's eligible for special education. The team also has to determine that they require specially designed instruction and that their disability is impacting their ability to access general ed. And so there are a number of students who may have autism but not require special education services. And so there, to your point, the teams are adept at identifying and have child find processes in place, but there's certainly a greater need and greater percentage of needs entering our schools.
We're identifying earlier. I mean, to your point, right? Yeah. Which is, I feel, a good thing because we're intervening with these kids very young so we can get them on the right path. But that would increase that population at our younger grades. So that just makes sense to me. Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Would just like to make a couple of comments too, as well as, those indicators that you've highlighted that are very important. If a state is solely to focus on compliance, the term is, you can pass the grade but miss the mark, pass the test but miss the mark. And so this is important discussions in that compliance is a foundation for processes and systems to build successful results upon, but solely relying on non-compliance does not result in improved outcomes. And so that's why the system is integrated this way. When OSIP evaluates us, they're combining compliance and results. And as Ajit mentioned, these highlighted areas where we're folding in results to the determinations are important. We want folks to pay attention to outcomes and to impact outcomes. And the federal guidelines specifically say, and law, is that states should focus on those activities that most impact outcomes. So this is a great reason why we're all meeting today together.
This is a report you don't have to read this, obviously. This is available for every school district. that can serve as a nexus for special education, this is available. It actually takes all those indicators that you saw and gives their rate and tells whether they met the target or whether they did not meet, how far they are, et cetera, from it. And based on all of that, there is actually a determination that's made that says they need assistance or they need intervention or whatever. That determination on the front page is actually made. We just wanted you to know that there is such a report that's generated every year for our district. And in the past 5 cycles, the next one will be coming out in a bit, but in these past 5 cycles, you could see of the number of LEAs, how many LEAs meet requirements, how many need assistance, which is like level 1 assistance, and how many need more greater assistance, which is level 2, and how many actually need intervention, which also has, I believe, a couple of levels, but I don't know. Doesn't seem like anybody is that needs intervention too, Brian. So, but
That's correct. And these we are required to use these terms. OSIP uses these terms for us. We're required to use these terms for the LEAs. And each status area that needs assistance, one, there's a notification to the district. Needs assistance to, we share our technical assistance in the areas that they've been identified, meaning which of those indicators on those previous slides are the reason that they are not meeting the state targets. And then needs interventions require corrective action plans for the district to address the areas that are identified. And then the CSDE can also impose high risk grantee status for the IDA federal grant and direct funds as needed to address the issues that are impacting their determination.
May I ask a question, please? Can we go back to the Bridgeport report, the example of a report? So this is for general ed and has some.
no, this is special ed only.
This is special ed only. Okay.
That's correct. This is their annual performance report for special education only.
So is this in response to the federal requirements?
Yes.
So this is the response to the list on the prior slide of what
That's correct.
These are the
These
17
indicators.
Yeah.
These are all in here. They're
Okay.
now listed in order 1 through 17. So the compliance and results indicators are mixed in here,
Got it.
but you can basically, it just goes through and shows you every indicator. This last page is really just the assessment. There's a lot more data there. So many more sort of sub indicators because it's ELA grade 4, math grade 4, ELA grade 8, math grade 8, ELA grade 11, whatever. It's a lot of different subcategories. So we put the assessment on one page, but the other indicators are all in these pages.
Okay. So the statewide assessments, which of these are what do statewide assessments look like for a population of students that have such diverse learning styles?
Yeah, that's a session unto itself, but very, very briefly, there are almost everybody takes what we call the standard assessments. So the standard assessments are administered by federal and state law to students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11. So there are the state assessments, and here I'm referring to the academic assessments. So English language arts, mathematics, science, etc. Science is administered in grades 5, 8, and 11, but English language arts and mathematics are administered in 3 through 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then again in 11. For Connecticut, that standard assessment is Smarter Balanced in grades 3 through 8, and in grade 11, it's the SAT. In addition to the standard assessments, we also have what's called alternate assessments. And the alternate assessments are for a small subset of the population, for about 1% of the student population with the most significant cognitive disabilities. So what that means, so in this case, we have the vast majority of special education students are actually taking, the vast majority of these students are actually taking the standard assessment. But the standard assessments come with a wide array of universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations. And you know, that's a whole there's a whole uh, session training I could do on just that. For example, our smarter balanced assessments are not timed assessments. So you can actually you can take as long as you need, you can break them up into multiple sessions, pick back where you left off, etc. There are
They're
also
not
all
timed
kinds of
for
supports
anyone?
and tools available, like reading, read alouds and highlighting tools and calculator tools, you know, depending on the nature of the assistance. Certain assistance, you require a special education identification and it being written in the IEP. Some other things don't require even an identification. There are universal tools that can be made available to everybody or designated supports that can come into play with teacher recommendation. So,
Is the
yeah,
test not timed? Are these general smarter balance assessments
Smarter
not
Balance
timed
is not timed.
They're not timed,
for
yeah.
anybody?
Mm-mm.
Yep.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And that was intentional in the design of the assessment. Now, the SAT is timed. I mean, that's still the SAT, but if you have a documented disability, we have worked out an arrangement with the College Board that students should be eligible to receive the accommodations that they have in their IEP for the exam, for the SAT exam. Same for English learners as well.
So you said the vast majority of kids in special ed are taking the general ed assessments.
That's correct.
So is that like 80% of the kids are
Probably
taking?
maybe more than that.
More.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a big number that actually take the alternate assessments.
Okay. So like maybe 90, and these are not hard numbers, but 90% say take general ed assessments and then 10% take alternative types of assessments, which we'll get
No,
into.
I think it's
later
even
now.
more than that.
A little over 1%.
Well, it's
take
1% of the
alternate.
total state population.
Yeah.
So it might be
Oh.
like, you know, 3,000 students statewide take it. So out
Yeah.
of the special education number of around 90,000, 95,000, somewhere in that vicinity, maybe like 3,000 maybe are taking an alternate assessment. I'm speaking very rough numbers here. Not precision, but just to give you a ballpark sense of where this is. So it's more than 95% of special education students actually take the standard assessment as well.
So what child would take the alternative assessment other than a child with an IEP?
It would be among those with an IEP with significant cognitive disabilities.
Okay.
And Brian, I'm gonna need your help here. So
Sure.
it predominantly would be a child who might have a primary disability of an intellectual disability, perhaps. I don't know, Brian.
Yes, those are individual PPT determinations. Planning and placement teams determine that. And then what we've supported planning and placement teams with are criteria for determining that, those students. It should be not a student with a cognitive disability, but with the most significant cognitive disabilities.
Okay. And is the alternative test, is it bespoke for each child based on what the child's issues are? There's not
No, it's
one
still a
alternative
standardized
test.
assessment because all our
Yeah.
assessments have to go through external peer review to meet technical requirements of high quality assessments. We cannot administer academic assessments unless they meet those rigorous standards. So all our assessments do or are in the process of doing, like the SAT still has to clear a couple of hurdles for the feds. But almost all our other assessments do. The core is alignment to the state standard. So, you know, it's essentially saying we expect kids to know A, B, C, D, and E, and F. Then our assessment has to assess students on those standards and has to be tightly aligned to those standards. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch of technical criteria that come into play: validity, reliability, test administration requirements, reporting requirements, accommodations, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
And students will participate in the assessment. All right, so there's a bunch of indicators. There's compliance indicators, there's results indicators. Compliance indicators predominantly affect the LEA determination. The state as a whole is looked on for all of it. The district receives data on all these indicators. They can kind of see how they're doing and where they're falling short. Most districts are doing okay on these compliance measures because that's kind of where much of their requirements are. There are districts that need assistance, varying levels of assistance, and very, very few need our intervention, sort of deeper intervention. So we wanted to share some results, actually some of the results, so that you can kind of like, again, contextualize this. The indicator one, as you know, is the graduation rate. And Tom, this metric was tweaked a few years ago by the feds to only focus on those who exited special education by graduating, reaching maximum age, or dropping out. So if a student is in transition, they would not have exited. So they're not in the denominator, if you will, right? So they used to look at the cohort graduation rate, which is more of an on-time measure. How many were first-time ninth graders who graduate with a regular diploma? They moved away from that, probably because of some of these types of complaints and whatever. So now it's an annual graduation rate. And these are our data, and I put in kind of a national reference. The national average is 73.9, about 74. For 22-23 in that year, we were like in the 80s, mid 80s already. So I think from and this is a consistent calculation across the states, right? So I'm sharing stuff that there is some consistency in implementation, and you could see nationally where the disparities are. There's also an annual dropout rate that's calculated, which also works from that same base of exiters. People who leave the system, who are exiting from the system. And a student might exit the system when they graduate, when they get a certificate of completion. Very few do in Connecticut. Or if they reach maximum age. And now it's you're 22, right? That changed recently.
End of the school year when the young adult turns 22. Yes.
Yeah. So it's or they've dropped out. They didn't finish. They went to adult ed, whatever. So there is a dropout calculation that's done. And again, Connecticut is generally doing better than the national average, and probably even better in more recent times. I added grade level proficiency. There are many sub measures within the assessment indicator. I just added one for illustration. These are and in the special ed world, even though we assess in every grade, in special ed, they look at like grade 4 and 8 and 11, but I'm showing here just grade 4 and 8, not all the other grades like 3, 5, 6, 7. I'm not showing that. I'm just showing grade 4 and grade 8. Left side is ELA, right side is math. Blue line is those who are not students with disabilities, and the orange line is those who are students with disabilities. 18-19 is our pre-pandemic kind of year, the last year, and then we really didn't have formal accountability for the middle 2 years of the pandemic, and then we picked back up, and you could see kind of the trend of where things are. Slight improvement in this achievement across the different grades, so that's actually encouraging. The general ed group hasn't come back to pre-pandemic levels yet. Again, we're giving you a sample for the different indicators so that we can continue to solicit more. And Brian, I'm just breezing through these. I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
I know that works well. I
Okay.
do want to apologize too. I have a meeting here at the 2 o'clock. So I know we're getting close to that time, but
Yeah.
definitely jump in when.
Yeah. Okay. Full-time service for the LOB, Brian, whether you're virtually here or whether you're in person there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Least restrictive environment, and this TWNDP is time with non-disabled peers. Like, what percentage of time is a child spending with non-disabled peers. There's ways of actually counting that. And these are Connecticut's data, and the black line is a target that we have that we established with the federal government. And roughly our percentage is around 67, 68. It's been kind of in that range. And this is the national average, by the way. This black line is that 80% or more with non-disabled peers. I mean, the national average increased a little bit, but is still around that 67, 68%. So Connecticut is kind of right where the national average is in this case. I don't know, Brian, did you want to mention this one?
Sure. 5C refers to students who are in separate schools, residential facilities, or hospital or homebound placements. And you can see the trends here recently, the last several years, we have decreased in these areas. We're just over % in our most recent data reporting on this. And there's been reference to Connecticut kind of having the highest, not kind of, or having the highest or nearly the highest rates in the country as a result of the placements in separate settings. And so these trends, the trend shows a downward trend in less students being placed. However, there are a variety of factors and reasons for that as well. The state and the State Department, as well as the legislature, have taken great steps to emphasize the importance of inclusive and regional programming and practices for students to support them in their neighborhood schools. So we wanted to share, there's 3 levels of reporting at the federal level with regard to least restrictive environment.
But being low is a good thing here.
Right.
You want to
Right.
be below that target in this case.
Yes,
You
and
don't
as
wanna
you
be
can
above it.
imagine, the 5A affects 5B, affects 5C, because the students, there's 80 to 100% the outplacement, and then there's a middle ground of students who are 40 to 80% of the time with non-disabled peers. So as a student is, for example, returning back to district, they may not be accessing 80% of the time with peers, but in their school setting. So those students wouldn't be reflective here in this indicator.
Indicator 14, I know you spoke about that a little while ago. There are a few pieces to this that looks at enrollment in higher education, or whether they're competitively employed or they're in any post-secondary or any employment. There's a lot of verbiage nuance to this. And essentially, the way we know this now is we actually do a couple of things. One is there is a survey that's administered, sent out to students post exit from school after they leave. But we also match data with the National Student Clearinghouse to know who's enrolled in post-secondary. And more recently, we've been working through our partnership through OPM, through DataLink CT, to check to see earnings for our students who exit, and to know if they're employed in Connecticut. So we actually get that data as well. So we've been able to actually show that our students, actually a really high percentage, are either enrolled in higher education or are employed, which is actually encouraging for us. And I put the corresponding national chart. I mean, it's nice to see that and this chart only addresses the first one, which is enrolled in higher ed, not the other two. And you could see, I think we're probably one of the states like right up there on this. And this data is for a more recent year than what this is showing. The national chart is, I believe, from 22-23. Our data might be from a more recent year, but we're still more in the darker shade here. Now, make one other plug. You may know of the free community college program we have in Connecticut, debt-free tuition. It used to be called PACT. It's now called the Marianne Handley Award, after I think after Senator Handley from I forget her district, but that award allows free community college for students, and they made a rule change. I mean, the legislature made a rule change recently that allows for students who are in transition programs to take community college courses when in transition. essentially allowing for a kind of dual enrollment and earning college credit while they're in transition, receiving special education support, which is really amazing opportunity for students. And that's just the rule change just happened last year. So it's new, but something that can really benefit students if done well. So this post-school outcomes we concur is a really important indicator. I'll also do a brief run through some other indicators that we have where we report special education students. Now, this is not part of special education reporting in the sense of to the feds and the annual performance report and all that. These are now other indicators that we report already for students with disabilities. We've been disaggregating this data for a long time in this fashion. We report on track to high school graduation in grade 9. This is part of our sort of bigger accountability system for schools and districts, not just special ed. This is like the overall accountability. This is one of those indicators. So, you know, we could look at an indicator like this. One indicator that we have is participation in arts courses in high school. And I've shown you what the data looks like disaggregated for students with disabilities. We have physical fitness assessment that we administer in grades 4, 6, 8, and once in high school. That is part of our accountability system. And I've shown below what on the right-hand side, how our students with disabilities are doing. We have a seal of biliteracy. This is not part of our accountability system, but I'm just presenting to you like the kinds of metrics we have. This one looks at and seal of biliteracy you earn by demonstrating proficiency in not just in English, but in another language. So they can do that by taking world language exams or other sort of means of doing that. There's an approved list and so on. And this also shows you that, you know, what percent of graduates with disabilities sort of earn that threshold. Right now, statewide for students without disabilities, about 13%, for those with disabilities, about 2%. So, you know, again, room for growth potentially here too. We look at dual credit. I mentioned this, you know, when I was talking about earning college credit when you're in high school. It is a huge part of our investments. The legislature actually, at the governor's request, has dedicated about 6 million or so annually to support growth and expansion in this area. This is about students taking college courses when they're in high school. Those college courses don't have to be just academically oriented like calculus and physics. They can also be career oriented. There's tons of those types of pathways and programming. And students with disabilities are taking part in those courses, but that may be another area potentially of interest. We look at FAFSA completion. For any post-secondary programming, you need to have the FAFSA in place, which is the free application for student aid with the U.S. Department of Education. And we track that data for students with disabilities as well. And as of yesterday, the statewide rate is around 45%. 45% of our 12th graders this year have completed the FAFSA. About 18% of special education students who are seniors have completed the FAFSA. We also track earnings of high school graduates. You know, actual average earnings of those who are working in Connecticut. This is for the graduating class of 2015. So I'm showing you earnings 9 years out for students who graduated, you know, 10 years ago. And the left-hand side is students with disabilities. The right-hand side is students without disabilities. And you could see the blue line represents those who earn a credential, college credential, and the orange line represents those who did not earn a college credential. And you can see the earnings differential there. And, you know, obviously the students it's evident that students without disabilities are earning more, but there is a difference even among students with disabilities if you are able to acquire a college credential, whether it be a bachelor's, associate, certificate, some kind of career credential as well. So there's a lot of different metrics that we report that actually currently have no place in the special education reporting, but we're just sharing this with you just to sort of give you some things for consideration. There's other data, contextual data that we report. We report staffing data for special education. We show FTEs, full-time equivalents for paraeducators and teachers for special education. We also have a vacancy dashboard, which shows you how many vacancies there are. And this is a challenge for the special education field uniquely, the vacancies in special education, especially given the increasing numbers. We report expenditures. And then there's this subset of students who are dually identified. These are students who are English learners and identified for special education. And in 24-25, that was about 11,000 students. So out of the 90 odd thousand students special ed, 11,000 were also English learners. So they have, language issues and special education issues going on. So anyway, we just wanted to give you a flavor of what other metrics that are out there. And I know you've weighed in on some of this already, but what else can we think about? Like, what are your thoughts on the current system, and what else should we consider?
This was a great presentation. So Ajit and Brian, as we were going through the special ed bill and you all were saying at different times, we're collecting this, we're collecting this. This is what you mean, right? This is what you mean.
There's a lot more to it, but yeah, this is some of
Yes.
what we mean.
Essentially. So you gave us a snapshot of what we're collecting at the state level that we're not required to collect at the federal level. But would you say, like, how does that split out? Is it 75% of the data we collect is for those federal sheets and 25 in the state level? I just want to get a sense of our whole database of information and where it is between those two buckets.
I'd say that we collect data. We don't collect anything that's not required for the most, pretty much. Like what we collect is something that is required in legislation or the state board requires us to do something. So we don't collect stuff that that is generally not
Right.
required. But that said, anything we collect, we try to collect as much as possible at the student level. So what that means is that anything we have, whether it be about like all those indicators I showed you, right? Like arts courses, on track to high school graduation, physical fitness, all of those things, we collect it for all students. So we are able to break it out for just students with disabilities. But we collect it for all students because I showed you students with disabilities, but we also reported for those from low-income families. We also reported by race, ethnicity. We also reported for English learners, et cetera. So I don't know if I could sort of like weigh it like percentage-wise, but I would just say that everything we collect for all students.
And is required by statute.
Either state or federal, right? So
Yeah.
the assessments, right?
Okay.
You see the assessments for special ed, but obviously we have that for all students, right? So, but we pull out and show you the assessment separate. The post-high school outcomes, we actually have that for all students, but we're doing a particular analysis just for special education students.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I need to head upstairs to 2E, but appreciate the opportunity to present to you all and looking forward to the ongoing discussions.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, folks.
I'll give someone else a chance to ask questions. Oh. Maybe I'll ask one. Preschool outcomes. What does that mean? What does preschool outcomes mean?
I am pretty sure that has to do with progress on preschool assessments. I do want to double check on that before I confirm. But I believe that has to do with progress on the preschool measures. There are, and I can check that.
Ajit, this is Liz Baumgardner.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, Tina, it might be, I work in a preschool, I work at the Wyndham Early Childhood Center. So I'm assuming it's maybe some of, like, we have to report
Advanced.
out on core, like there's certain small assessments. Not like Smarter Balance, obviously not at the preschool level, but we do have to report on some of those. So I believe that's what it is, but Ajit, obviously you would be able, but I'm not sure if, because I know what I have to report on when I have to report on our ECE reporter and all that for state funding and that kind of thing. So that's what we report out under our preschool students, 3 to 5 year olds.
Yeah, it actually pertains to time in early childhood educational environments, increasing placement, decreased segregated placements, and decreased services in the home. That's sort of the time piece for early childhood indicator 6. Indicator 7 is progress in early childhood, where yes, we are looking at progress pre to post. There is an assessment that's actually administered, and that looks at things like social emotional skills, use of knowledge, appropriate behaviors, etc. And it tries to see our students making progress on those skills from when they entered pre-K to when they left pre-K.
Is there any part of the data that we collect which is from parents, where parents assess their experience going through the system?
I am not familiar. I need Brian for that, Representative.
We have 2 minutes. Does anyone have any other questions? I have one last one. Ajit, when we collect all this information, is it all publicly available to every district and to the public?
Yes, very much so. I'm going to take a second, just one additional minute. This is EdSite, and I think you've seen EdSite or at least accessed it. So if you go to General Summary Reports and the Special Education Annual Performance Reports, you'll actually see the reports for every district here. This is what I took a screenshot of. So if I go to Bridgeport, for example, which I had there, you can actually see that this is the PDF that is available for every district. So here's where you could see what the early childhood indicators are. And then if you go back, you can pick a different district, and this is available for every year prior, going back to 05, 06. I mean, the formatting will look a little different as you go the older days and stuff, but the idea of these reports, yeah, we've had them for a long time. So this is available, and all the other stuff that I showed you too. So if you're, when I was talking about access to the arts or on track to high school graduation, right? I mean, those dashboards are also available publicly. So this is not currently a special ed indicator, but we have data on this anyway. So here, when I go to all students, you can notice all these different student groups. If I just select special education, it gives me that breakout for special ed versus not. But if I were to select a different group, like gender, it'll show me the gender breakout. How are students doing by gender? If I break it out by free reduced price meal eligibility, it'll show me how students are doing. So I mean, so essentially these are data that we collect for all students. And so we just, including special education students. So a subset of these are making it into that full formal account, like indicator-based system for special education, but we collect a lot more than what's in there.
Ajit, this is Anne Marie Cullen, and I just wanted to add that I believe the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center does collect some data and parent input.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish Brian were here to provide more background on that, but thank you, Anne Marie, appreciate it. I know we're at time. Our next meeting is currently scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th from 1 to 2. The topic is the CT SEDS review piece of our legislation. I don't know if folks want to have more time to sort of percolate on some of the ideas shared today and maybe come back at the February meeting with additional thoughts on maybe additional indicators. Maybe that would be, maybe we can start that meeting with sort of picking back up from here to just open it up for more discussion. And then we can get into the CT SEDS review. How does that sound?
I think that's a great idea.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you all for jumping on. I guess motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank you
you
all
for all
for
this work,
jumping on.
Ajit.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.